What's up, everybody? Welcome to Real Estate Insights. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Andrew Glisson. Man, it's been a busy few months, few weeks in the real estate business. Uh, the Fed cut the interest rate, which helped on the investing side, but the residential real estate, if you're a homeowner, an owner occupant, the mortgage interest rate went the wrong way. So it's actually gone back up. And the Fed is supposed to be cutting again another quarter point. So we'll have to see what the interest rate, if you're an owner occupant of your house, what the interest rate does after that. It's anybody's guess. We have a presidential election next week. This is going to be an interesting next few weeks in the real estate world. My hope is that the interest rate continues to go down as a real estate investor. And if you're an owner occupant, you're trying to buy a home, obviously we want to borrow at cheaper interest rates. The real estate market is kind of frozen right now in a lot of markets around the country. There's more inventory on the market than there has been, even to pre-pandemic levels in a lot of municipalities around the country. And a lot of homes that would have sold and should be selling are not selling because people are playing the wait and see approach, which is probably fine and probably prudent for folks to do. So we'll have to see how the presidential election affects real estate. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to happen, but our first guest on the show is a new guest for us, Ricky Chavez. He's in the Houston market. And Ricky, welcome to the show. Obviously, before we kick off, I've got some questions. I want to deep dive a little bit into the real estate, buying process. But Ricky is a team lead for Better Homes and Gardens in Houston. And Ricky, how do you see, just kind of right off the top, kind of a very high level overview, how do you see kind of the environment that we're in right now? Do presidential politics, does, the Fed cutting a quarter point, how does this all play into real estate for single family homes?
So it's definitely a roller coaster. People are worried about the mortgage rates. They're worried about what their costs, what their payments are going to be, and because of that, they're kind of standoffish as far as going to see the homes. And then on the actual list side, they're kind of everybody's very emotional with their home, so sometimes they want to list a little bit higher, which doesn't have people wanting to come see them as much. So right now, that's a concern for most is the
Right.
mortgage rates.
Do you see, is there any magic number on mortgage rates? As you guys are talking shop, I mean, where do people really, where do people think that we need to be in order for the real estate market to open up again?
Well, I think the big thing for most people to understand is if they're renting, they're 100% mortgage. I mean, it's 100% interest rate. So
Yeah.
I think the concern is I know I was looking, one of my lenders sent me a thing from, I guess it was 1980s, and it was 17%, some ungodly amount.
Yeah.
So I think people, as they get more educated, and I've had these conversations with a couple clients saying, back then this is the rate, and then they say, well, the houses were less expensive. And then my reply to that is basically, so we made less money also. So it's all kind of relevant. I think the people that are really wanting to buy homes, we're going to go out there, and we seem to be selling quite a few homes, which is fine. And we're the house, like you said earlier, there's a lot of listings out there. It's just a matter of
Yep.
matching the buyer with the home.
Right. So, obviously, I guess if it's a buyer's market and there's more inventory available for buyers, walk me through the steps, Ricky, that you take buyers through, that analysis process when somebody's looking to buy a home and thinking about making an offer and going through the houses. What are the right steps to take
Well,
for somebody
the
looking to?
first, sorry about that. The first
You're
is
good.
just determining if they're pre-approved, and the one thing that I want try to make sure, so I have four grown children that have homes now, and I kind of talk to everybody about the same concept. It's not about what you qualify; it's for what you feel comfortable with as a monthly payment. And
Right.
people don't, they'll get qualified 350, 400,000, then they see that payment, and then that sticker shock kicks in.
Yep.
So, I tell them get with a lender, get all the documents to the lender, and actually find out what you're not only pre-approved for, but what's comfortable for you. The next step is definitely finding a real estate that you gel with, a real estate agent that you feel comfortable with and you trust. Then you start looking for the homes in the areas. And Houston, each of the neighborhoods have different tax rates. So once we get the pre-approval from the
Mm.
lender, that kind of, plays a part in when we're looking and what we're looking and what the payments are going to be. Principal, interest, taxes, insurance. The taxes is a big job, especially in the newer neighborhoods. The tax rates are, in the threes, three pluses. And then
Wow.
so it kind of depends on what the buying is at that point.
Man,
Then
so
you
some of the newer neighborhoods, like in the suburbs and things like that, these are 3% tax rates and higher. That's a
Yeah,
lot of
so
money.
most are 3.6 and higher, actually. I mean, because you're kind of paying taxes for the other houses that aren't built yet, not the rest of the neighborhood that's happening. I
Yep.
know I bought a home in 2016. I was the second to the last home in that neighborhood that was the new build, and other than the model itself, and I think it was 3.5 at the time. Now I think we're down to about 2.6. As it
Okay.
all mellowed, yeah. So right now, looking in the neighborhoods, that's kind of you have to pay for that. But with the
Wow.
new bills, the incentives are much more appealing. You know, um, that's
Right.
once you find a home, it's making you're making an offer, and then
Yep.
once you make the offer, you schedule the inspection and finalize the mortgage. The big thing most people need to understand is there's three negotiations in buying a home, right? You negotiate the price, you negotiate the repairs, and then you negotiate the appraisal if that's needed. And then you
Hmm.
just conduct the final walkthrough and then close on the home.
Yep. Ricky, on the financial process, when you said, one of the first key points is to get pre-approved to buy a home. Are there some low-hanging fruit that uh, future buyers can do if they know, if I know I've got to move in a year, what are some of the things that I can do right now to get into a better spot with a lender to get the most favorable rate, the lowest down payment, all those kind of things? Are there some easy things to kind of check off the list early?
So I think the main thing is getting comfortable with a lender, and typically what I do with my clients is have them talk to at least two, and actually get the pre-approval started, even if they want to
Yep.
do it from a year from now. Because what I've seen happen out here, especially the first-time home buyers, they're all ready to go, ready to rock and roll, found the house they really, really like, and then there's something in their credit that just demoralizes them.
Yeah.
Whereas if they go ahead and get all the paperwork together, work with the lender, get the pre-approval done, and give them all the documents, that makes them also more appealing to the seller because now you can close
Right.
faster because most of the things are done.
That makes a lot of sense. Are you seeing, Ricky, are you seeing a lot of institutional investors in your market that are buying homes that, they're also competing with, first time home buyers and families and things like that? These guys are coming in offering cash. Do you see a lot of that in the Houston market?
I actually yes, but one of the things with them is they're not offering typically 80%, of the value of the home. And
Oh,
then
I
they
see.
require them also to do, pay for repairs. So when it's all said and done, especially for the sellers, is excuse me, is they need to do net sheets. So we met with some actually last week, and that's one of the things we showed them. They felt really good with the number, but when they looked at the market analysis, what the market supports the value of the home, and what the net sheet was, is going to be different. Now with the buyers, as you asked, I mean, that's concerning because they're going to come in and make some offers, but cash is not necessarily king unless
Right.
unless it closes fast and it offers what you list for.
What is a net sheet, Ricky?
Oh no, perfect. So a net sheet for a seller, basically you plug in the numbers of what the offer was, what the loan's for, how much you still own on the house, what the tax rate, what's the date of closing, what's the closing costs,
Hmm.
who pays the title. You put it all together, and it'll give you what the seller will net at the sale of their home,
Gotcha.
and pretty
Okay.
close.
I got you. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, 80% offer, um, with a lot of repairs is much worse than, 100% from a family,
For
with
sure.
not as deep of a repair list, maybe. What are some of the things, in terms of that from a new build perspective or even a home that's been around for a while? Are there things that you always find? I mean, always is, I don't like to use words
Are you
like
talking
that, but
about
are
the
there a lot of
inspection?
things? Yeah, on a property inspection, what are some things that you see often from a home that was built a while ago or a brand new build? Or there's some things that you run across a lot
So the
with
first thing
repairs?
I'm going to say is homes are man-made, so it doesn't matter if it's brand new or it's really old. There's going to be some things going on, right? What I
Yep.
try to coach my buyers is, there's five main pieces, right? It's the roof, the electrical, the plumbing, HVAC, the foundation, And those
Yeah.
are things we really want to concentrate on as far as what's wrong with it, what could be a possible challenge in the home. If the walls are purple, although it might not be as aesthetically pleasing, you can paint it, right?
Right.
But if there's any problems with the plumbing or the roof, especially in Houston, the roofs are a big deal. A lot
Yeah.
of insurance companies are not insuring homes that have roofs over 15 years.
Mm.
And, part of the mortgage process, you have to have insurance. So there's some challenges with that.
Yeah. Speaking of insurance, have you seen insurance rates go up a lot in the Houston area? You guys are, so
So,
close to the coast.
oh yeah, no, that's an amazing question in Houston, especially because, I moved into my new property in June. 3 days later, I got hit with a tornado. A
Oh
month later, I got hit
man.
with a hurricane. All right. So trees are coming down, all kinds of things going on. I have a lot of clients that had homes listed. So yeah, there's actually been some insurance companies that have pulled out of Texas, for
Oof.
those reasons. And then on top of that, and this is like on a personal note, we're totally closed. We get a letter from our insurance saying, okay, you have to do these things or we're pulling the insurance, because they had a
Mm.
drone come over and saw like a platform outside the back of our door, and it was like a 10 by 10 just wood platform. They're like, hey, you need this gone by this date. It didn't
Get
affect
out of
anything.
here.
But yeah, so it's they're really trying to do their due diligence to ensure that
Man.
they're not spending a lot of money.
Flying drones over the house. We've
Yeah, it
entered
was
a new phase of property inspection on the insurance side. I've read articles about that, and but you're the first person I've talked to that's actually had the drone fly over the house and had an outcome on that. Was it just a like a patio or something that they were
so
trying to
it
get
was
demolished?
so I
Or
understand this. We bought a 2 acre lot with two houses on it, right?
I
And so
got you.
it was kind of like a patio, yes, but it had no cover. It was just out the back.
Yeah,
And so if my property has a gate, you have to come through a gate to come into the property. So it's like, how did you see how did this happen to start with? And
man.
that was the answer. Well, we got a drone, we sent some pictures, and it was so crazy. So I remove it, I take pictures and send it to the insurance agent. But because I had two pieces of plank next to my foot in the picture, they said, no, we need a new picture because we need those wood gone. So insurance is getting pretty on point.
Man, they really are. They're finding ways to lock in exactly, what they know and what risks they're taking on,
For
which I guess is
sure.
fair, but man, that's a little bit intimidating when you got drones flying over your house,
Right. For
slightly
sure.
unorthorized, but well, look,
Well,
Ricky,
you know
thanks
what
for
it is?
making
They're
the
trying to take
time.
care of themselves.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's exactly right. We've run out of time for this episode, but it's been great to talk to you. Thanks for joining us on the show as a new guest, Ricky. And I think you're already booked for another show, so we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode. But everybody, we're going to take a really quick break, and we'll be back for more guests. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ricky. Welcome back, everybody. We've got David Aronson back on the show. David is the founder of REVS, Refuel Electric Vehicle Solution. David, I love having you on the show because I like talking about, kind of the next phase. And I mean, I love cars. And so, this is transportation. You guys are installing these electric charging stations all over the country in apartment complexes. And, you've kind of got your finger on the pulse on, all the new stuff that's coming out. So from a, electric car standpoint, you guys see all the new technology that comes out. What's the next milestone in vehicle charging that you see on the horizon, and when do we get there?
Well, I guess the next horizon is probably wireless charging.
Okay.
Okay. And so what the companies are doing is they're putting the wireless charging, it's kind of like your iPhone when you don't plug it in, but you sit it on a pad and it
Yep.
charges that way. Same thing for a car. Now, in order to do that, the car has to be able to accept a charge that way. And only right now, I'm only aware of a few models that can accept wireless charging. So
Interesting.
for the next number of years, we'll probably all be tied to a cord to charge, but
Yep.
sooner or later it will evolve into wireless charging at some point.
Where does that wireless charging on the vehicle, where's that located on the models that are out there now?
It'll be underneath the car,
Okay.
like it's on the bottom of your cell phone.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, it's got a ways to go. The technology seems to be there.
Yep.
And of course we do just multifamily. So, uh, it's all a matter of cost. And so I'm not sure the cost will ever be effective to put in a multifamily property, but it
I
could
see.
be. I mean, it's just, we're so early on, it's evolving.
Yeah. So you're talking 10 years from now, kind of thing before it
Probably,
really becomes
maybe sooner,
mainstream. Yeah.
maybe sooner, but definitely, 3 to 5 years for sure.
Would the wireless charging be as fast as plugging it in?
Well, it should be. I mean, if it's going to work, it certainly shouldn't be any slower.
Yeah.
It- you know,
True.
now, now, I'm a little nervous about it because there's always that space between the charger and the connector. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of current going on between that, and I don't know enough about the technology at this point to say whether that's going to necessarily be safe.
Yep. True. Yeah. There's a
What
lot to think
happens
about when it comes to
if
that.
your dog walks under the car and starts sniffing around the charging pad?
Yep.
I
Zap.
make a rude joke, but
Not
I
a good idea.
won't.
Yeah.
The original hot dog.
Yeah. Oh man, I love it. So how do you think, at some point for electric vehicles to really become mainstream, you got to be able to pull up to a charger and fill up in about 10 minutes, like I can, or 5 minutes, like I can in my truck. So how far are we away from that moment?
Well, they're making some very, very strong chargers.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, that can put out 400 kilowatts an hour, and that will charge your car in 10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
No matter what car you have. The
Gotcha.
bigger challenge is getting enough electricity to those chargers, because usually you
I
just
see.
put up one, you put up more than one. So that's a big challenge. But with all due respect, your truck that you drive at nighttime sits at your house,
Yeah.
and it's much more convenient to plug it in at home at night, where you don't really need that fast charge. You can charge it all night long. You have 10 hours or when the car sits there almost every night,
Yeah, you're right.
and you can get enough charge for no matter it for every kind of battery in that time frame.
I think you're right. Yeah. And if you think about like the range anxiety discussion that people always say, well, I'm not able to drive from Houston to San Antonio because I got to plug in, on the way. But if you think about how often like I drive long distances, or my wife, I mean, it's not that often, right? So you
Right,
can
right.
really get away with, kind of an overnight charge, and that shouldn't be a big deal. But do you think on the multifamily developments that you guys are working on, you're putting the chargers in, are the owners of those developments open to allowing other folks to come in and charge their cars that don't live in that community, or is it purely an amenity for the residents of that
Well,
facility?
so look, I mean, if you're operating an apartment complex, I'll ask you the question back. Okay, if you own an apartment complex, do you want somebody who doesn't live there using your EV charger? Now, most of the apartments have gates or access
Yeah,
control to the vehicle. And so if you're gonna have it out there for the public, it'll be in front of those gates, in front of that access control. Do you really want other people coming and sitting in front of your apartment property while they refuel their car? And it's not or they'll drop somebody off and they'll leave it and they'll pick it up in the morning. I mean, is that really a
yeah,
good use of, is that what you want for your property? I don't
yeah,
personally
probably
want
not.
anybody milling around my property. Nothing is going to do do anyone any good having someone from outside of that multifamily community come hanging around the apartment complex at 9, 10, 11
True.
o'clock at night.
Very true.
So
Yeah.
we encourage it. We encourage it just to be for the multifamily residence usage.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. And are you seeing, you guys have been at this for a while, David, are you starting to see, some of the initial installs that you guys did early on in the business? Are they coming back saying, hey, we've got more electric vehicles now, we need more capacity? Are those conversations starting to gear up?
We monitor it every month, and yes, I mean, occasionally we do have some that say we want more. The first question we have to ask is there any space on the electrical panel
Yeah.
to put more charging stations up? And in most multifamily properties, that's a significant issue.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
Not
Yeah.
enough power. There's just not enough power at that
Yeah.
property.
Is that a broader grid issue, or is there enough power on most of the lines coming in where if you just go back and retap it with bigger infrastructure, you can get the power there? Which, I mean, all that's expensive, right? I mean, this is like anything electrical is like extremely expensive, which I
Well, it
understand.
is. It depends where you're at. Every utility company in the country's different. Every city's different. So
Yeah.
some cities like Houston, the center point will come in and give you the extra power for
Okay.
almost nothing. I mean, a few $1,000s, which is which is a real good deal in my opinion. But you go to other cities and they won't. Other utility companies will not do that. So it just depends on the utility company. Everyone we found has different programs and policies on it. Okay.
Oh yeah.
To me, the ideal situation will be when they can when the solar panels are strong enough to capture enough energy to refuel your car. Okay. So you don't really need any electrical grid. You just, use the sunlight.
Yeah.
Of course, they have some products out there right now on the market that uses solar. Okay. But they're too expensive to use in multifamily properties. And not only are they too expensive, they just don't hold enough power yet, but they will.
Yep.
And so, I can see one day that there's a solar panel on and that's what's producing the energy for the charging station. That will be the best of all worlds if we can do it economically.
Yep. It's getting better. I mean, this is definitely like the world is focused on making this stuff more efficient, right?
Yeah, there's no question. It's getting better and better. Yeah.
What is the draw, David? Like the chargers that you guys are putting into the average apartment community. Is it akin to turning the washing machine on or the dryer? Is that how much power it draws?
Yeah, it's like it's like a dryer. Yeah, I mean, you put, we usually use 40 to 80 amp circuits, 100 amp circuits. Most washer or washer and dryers are on a 20 amp circuit. So you may find some on a 40 amp circuit, but they're generally pulling a 40 amp circuit can pull 7 kilowatts, about 7 kilowatts an hour. Okay. And if you think about it, the average battery size in a car today, call it 75 kilowatts. Of that 75 kilowatts, the manufacturers recommend that you don't fill it to over 80%.
Okay.
So 80%, you're about 50, you need about 40 kilowatts because they don't like you running it down to zero either. So it's between 10 and 80. So, if you need 40 or 50 kilowatts to fill your car up, that's what, that'll take you 7 hours on a 7 kilowatt charger.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
For the evening, you come home at 6 and you're finished at 2 a.m. and wake up in the morning and your car's ready to go.
Yeah. Simple as that.
It really is. And it's convenient. I mean,
it is.
I've been doing this for a while, like you said, Andrew, and it's funny because I've talked to thousands of people now, and I haven't found one person who enjoys going to a gas station.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay.
I'm one of those
And
people.
I haven't been to a gas station in several years now, and it's okay. It's
Yeah.
convenient.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, it's always fascinating to chat about the future of electric vehicles, especially from a multifamily application. We didn't get into the real estate side of this very much, but thanks for answering my my random questions as we peel back the onion on this stuff. So good to see you again, David. And we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with you guys.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. As the interest rate has continued to stay elevated, and it's made a lot of real estate investments a little bit harder to achieve, obviously, than when interest rates are low. I think one of the shining lights nationally in real estate investing continues to be short-term rentals. I realize that there's headwinds that the government, certain municipalities are adding to the investments. I realize that, there's parties and the hospitality business is not easy. But I think short-term rentals is one of the best places that you can put your money. So our next guest that's on the show, she's been on the show before, Griselda Abuzlaman, and she owns real estate all over the country. And Griselda, you also are basically advising, larger companies on investment strategies and things like that.
Right.
Is short-term rentals in your mind? Do you continue to see that as kind of, a shining light in an otherwise kind of a dim real estate investment horizon right now?
Yeah, I definitely do. We have them. We have long-term rentals as well. Our portfolio is quite large, like you say, throughout the southern part of the U.S. map. But short-term rentals are definitely a way of vacationing, right? So people need some time off from their busy schedules. So that's what we find, that they do a little escapade to southern Texas or, somewhere by the lake or the beach, and they get away. So I do think that it's a promising investment. It's done quite well for us. We have one and planning to build out some more in the next couple of years. So I would definitely, I'm all in on them, and they've done well for us. So I would recommend them.
Yep. So from a long-term or a short-term rental, you could, this question goes for really either one of those. How do you really dial in on a pricing strategy? Because that's what it's all about, right? When you put the number out there,
Yep.
you do not want real estate to sit. If it's sitting vacant, you're making no money.
Right.
How do you get the right price, short-term and long-term, so you can make sure that people are occupying that unit?
Yeah. This is one thing that I have found to be extremely, extremely helpful. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an investor. I don't have that much time to really look at all the details of what's happening in those markets. And like I say, we're in different markets, different states. So it's really hard to keep your pulse and your eye on every single one of them, right? So I do rely on technology, right? Technology, and then companies that are out there that you pay what I call a small fee. Some people say, hey, it's like 10, 15, 12%. I think that's very, very much worth it, because I don't have the time to be looking at the Texas market and the Florida market and North Carolina.
Right.
I need someone to be doing that for me. And let's face it, right? I'm solo. I'm one with, just my partners, just two or three of us, but they have access to thousands of homes, markets, performance metrics, and they provide recommendations. So technology, using what is the market doing? And with that, we fluctuate our rates, right? There's some peak times in the summer that we definitely make sure that they're priced accordingly. And then there's some times in the winter times where we got to give some discounts or some less, lower rates, just because I'm not going to get booked if you keep them at summer rates. That's just the nature of it.
And if you're hiring somebody to make those decisions for you, then how do you qualify that those companies or those individuals can give you that data? Are you just finding the biggest, short-term rental hosts or the biggest property management companies out there?
There's
what are you
some,
looking at when you're trying to find?
yeah, so there's several consumer reports. So we do look at which is the best partner out there, which has the best software that is going to study the market and give you the best recommendation, right? And there's several, right? I can name a few. Airbnb does their own, Evolve,
Yep.
Vacasa. There's several companies that sometimes we do it all for you, and that's fantastic if you have 5 or 6 short-term rentals and you don't want to do it all yourself. Some of them is just the analytics. And so you just pay a portion for the analytics, and then they're studying the market and they're recommending to you. Now, I say
Yep.
that it's a recommend, but it doesn't always have to be the fact that you do that. I'm sorry, I'm going to back up my camera a little bit. It's an AI
Yep.
camera. You say use technology for everything, even for my videos.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they give you a recommendation, which you either accept and or you just modify yourself. So I still have the power of adjusting the rates based on what the data
Yep.
tells me.
Yep. Yep. And do you find that, are you adjusting rates like on a short-term rental? If you notice that, look, it's Thursday, we don't have anybody coming in on Friday. Are you manually like dropping that to as low as your threshold, will allow, or does the software automatically, kind of dump the price for you?
That's a great question. So I have a setting and I don't let the software lower it for me. What I do instead is in those low days or, call it weekdays, right? Weekends, for the most part, they're booked. But in the weekdays, basically I offer it to businesses, strategy meetings, team bonding events, gatherings, those types of meetings. You can charge, some amount. You won't charge the full amount for them to stay overnight. But that's what I'm doing now, right? Marketing it to businesses that are doing their year-end planning for 2025. And that's how I've been filling the weekdays in the week.
Gotcha. And then what are the really kind of the financial metrics that you're looking at before you make an investment decision, and really kind of once that investment becomes operational? Are you looking at purely cash flow? Are you looking at internal rate of return? Are you looking at cap rate? What are some of the metrics that you think are important
I'll keep it super
in real
simple,
estate?
Andrew, because I know there's so many different things that we can track. And as a
Yep.
business in our entire portfolio, we do track. For short-term rentals specifically, it is 3 numbers that matter. Obviously, the revenue, right? How much money you're making, your occupancy rate, you want to maximize that to no end. And like I say, you have to get creative when you see that there's lack of bookings, like in that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday timeframe.
Yep.
And then the third one is kind of tracked for you if you use any type of software, but it's the customer satisfaction. You do
Yep.
well on those 3, especially the customer sat, then the revenue follows.
Totally agree. You've got to have, it's funny, like when in short-term rental world, 5-star reviews, that's the only thing that's acceptable. If you get a 4-star, it might as well be like getting a 1-star. You
It's
can't
true.
accept it. It's crazy.
It's true. You have to be top rated so that they promote you. And then so the
Yep.
algorithms kick in too, right? They're going to
Right.
promote the 5-star as the top 10 of our listings. And that grabs people's attention. So you get more
Yep.
bookings and your occupancy rate goes up.
That's right. Is there a rule of thumb on an expense ratio for, short-term and long-term rentals? I mean, in our long-term rental portfolio, we operate under, kind of a 60-40. 40% of every dollar we collect is going to be expenses. What would that number be on a short-term rental?
A 60-40, that is interesting because that's definitely what we see on the long-term side. I always say that it's variable. It's been,
Yep.
60-40 within short-term rentals, but it depends and depends on the month. Like sometimes during the peak season, we're on the beach for the most part. That is going to be different, right? So it's a variable rate. And so I won't be able to give you like, okay, this is what you should be looking for a good, expense ratio. So it varies. We send expenses to a minimum. And with that, depending on how many bookings you're having, it'll vary.
Yep. Yep. I always find that short-term rentals are a little bit more complicated than long terms because there's a lot more, like you said, there's a lot more variables that go into it. And so, which can be more expensive, right? If it's management companies, they're charging you a lot more money than a long-term rental management company.
Right.
Cleaning expenses, capital expense, you've got to replace that furniture. What's a good, kind of runway if you are fully kitting out a short-term rental, and you've got to replace items, how long does furniture last in a short-term rental from a capital expense perspective? What's a good budget?
That's a great question. We were
timeline?
just doing that in our strategy meeting, going over like, hey, when do we replace refrigerators? Even appliances, right?
Yeah,
They're going to
true.
break. There's wear and tear in just about everything. So we like to look at it an 18-month period. So not that we replace everything at the 18-month time frame, but you do notice that things are starting to wear down a little bit. And if you want to be in the luxury end, you have to be looking at that, right? Because some of
Yeah.
the furniture or refrigerators or some appliances, they're not that expensive. And so for relieving yourself of the headaches of the refrigerator broke or the stove, and the oven not going on, for those types of things, it's worth to look at it every 18 months. And if you've had one or two downtimes throughout the year or the 18-month period, then for us, we do take a look. I'm like, okay, we're going to replace a refrigerator. So
Right.
that's one thing that we've already done, right? Because there was a lot of, they're escaping, the refrigerator temperature was going out. The food was not getting as cold. The temperature of it was operable, but it was not optimized. And so we replaced it. Now, our guests are a lot happier.
Yep. Do you find that on the short-term rental maintenance request side, is it more maintenance intensive than long-term rentals?
It is. Oh, by far. Absolutely. Yeah. On the long-term rentals, I mean, every once in a while there'll be something and there's a call and you go take care of that. On the short-term rentals, because people are coming in and out every week, there is a lot more wear and tear, right? And there's also a lot of people that forgot to close the refrigerator or forgot to close the door and the AC is escaping. There's all those little things that are just bound to happen in short-term rentals. So you just have to account for that, right, in your expense.
Yep, makes sense. Well, Griselda, it's always nice to have you on the show. Appreciate the time, and we'll look forward to continuing these conversations in the future. We'll take a quick commercial break and be right back.
Perfect. Great to be here, Andrew.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. I want to dig in a little bit because most of you guys that watch the show are investors in real estate at some level. And I've got a guest on the show, new guest on the show, Jose Torres, never been on before. He is the principal broker at the Tevas Real Estate Group. Jose, first of all, welcome to the show, and appreciate your insight around some of kind of what's going on in the market, kind of macroeconomic things that we talked about a little bit, offline before we went live here. How do you see, the Fed cut the interest rate a half a point? There's discussions that there could be another quarter point coming off. In your commercial real estate practice, you guys do residential and commercial. Do you see that? I mean, is a quarter point going to help the market at all, or does it need to be more material than that, you think?
Thank you, Andrew, for letting me come. Yes, it still needs to be for the interest rate. It still needs to come down some more because we're still. I believe the interest rate last time I checked was like 6.9 because it's climbing back up, and the latest change they're predicting November is about 25 basis points. But the job report that came out strong. So the challenge is, I think it's going to be 25 basis points. And of course, you see Wall Street adjusting for that. So is it going to, it needs to be, it needs to be adjusted more because the days of, the 2 to 3% are not there anymore. But if you look at the interest rates historically, they have been up to 18%. So I think the new norm is going to be between 5 and 7%. I think that's going to be the game changer. Once we get to 5%, I think the market will get back for residential and commercial. Commercial is typically the interest rate plus 2 basis points. So you're looking at a little bit higher for commercial side. So,
And then in your practice, obviously you guys do both. And by the way, Jose's in the Houston market, and so. You guys are seeing a lot more activity than a lot of other places around the country, just the sheer size and scale of, Houston, and, the GDP output down there is tremendous. What sort of commercial do you guys do? What would be the percentages from office, retail, multifamily? What are you seeing like mostly right now?
So that's a great question. Office is really tough right now. The numbers are really soft. I will tell you, one city center, downtown Houston, one of the premier locations, has a loan that's in default of over 100 million. Their NOI was $2,324. I mean, you're talking about a Class A 47-story building, and they're in really deep trenches. So office sector is really bad, and I think that the term the way to get out of that one is going to be kind of reconvert them. There's some companies out there looking at the feasibility of converting them to residential. Then retail is just tough as well, because I mean, we can't. I'm bad for it as well. Amazon has really destroyed the retail market, and retail, you can order stuff and get that piece, and it's hard to get leases for retail as well. What we're really good at is multi-use, and that's warehousing, kind of office space for the service industry. That's HVAC
Like
guys,
flex space.
electricians, flex space, exactly. That is a still solid market. If you get anything 2,000 square feet below, that's still going strong. RV parks, mobile homes. I mean, mobile home parks. Those are storage facilities. Those are solid industries to stay in. And there's a new trend coming out, and I'm going to share it, is data centers. The study shows that there's not enough data centers in the United States to house all the AI infrastructure, AI, term. So there's a huge demand for data centers, and there's companies out there figuring that out really well. And I believe the next thing will be looking at that empty office space or retail space and seeing how we can convert that into data centers. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Do you see in the Houston market, obviously, they're building tremendously outside of the suburbs. There's a lot of infill development from a residential perspective going on inside. Is there enough demand to convert a lot of these, office buildings that are going vacant? Is there enough demand to convert those to apartments and people are going to move into them? Or is it kind of like what the real estate industry does? You're going to overbuild and it's going to take years to catch up?
Great question. Actually, I will say I do a lot of reading. A&M has a research group for housing, and they just announced that there's still a 306,000 home shortage. They're predicting that in the next 5 or 10 years, because I think you said, Andrew, earlier, that Houston is pretty insulated from the national economic side of it. The cool part about that is that Texas, it's called the Texas Triangle, which is Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, and some San Antonio, Austin. If you were to just filter all the economic activity, that GDP is one of the top ones, and the growth, the population growth is super crazy. It's going to be really tough. It's not going to stop. And you talk about the infill spaces. Katie's still building, Tomball still building. That's where it's changing. So
I just think about, where if you look at where people live now and where they want to be, you see a lot of people that are fleeing high tax states, in states where the weather's not as nice, maybe moving from a very cold climate down to a warm climate. Texas is kind of where it's at, but there's a couple of headwinds, insurance and taxes. Do you see that as being a little bit of a damper in the economic growth? Because taxes can be pretty punitive in the Houston area, as well as insurance, because you have named windstorms that can roll through, and so carriers attach a premium to that. How has that headwind affected the market and the stability there?
Oh my gosh! So I can tell you a personal story and a commercial story. We had some really downtown properties going up for sale. And once we ran through all the due diligence, feasibility period, it went well. But guess what the game changer was? Exactly what you said:
Insurance.
Taxes and insurance.
Yep.
And the taxes doubled on this one property. And of course, the state assembly said they put a circuit breaker, 20%. There was a new state legislation that came out saying that they can only go, I think it's 10% for commercial, 20% for residential. But what they did is they didn't really take away the above 20%. They put it as a circuit breaker, so that next year that's already going to be automatic.
Oh,
So if
man.
they did a 25% increase, they can only get you 20% this year, but for next year, that 5% is already included, and they may come after you for another 20%. That's brilliant, right?
That's brutal. Yeah.
Yeah. And insurance, it's a tough business to be in. I believe there's some companies, some of the major companies are not even writing insurance policies in Texas or in Florida. Hence, we just bought a multifamily unit in H-Town, East District area, and never mind the mortgage payment, we were getting insurance quotes of like $10,000, and I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, this was
Yeah.
unexpected. And it's just the windstorm piece, so it's really challenging, and I think that's going to be the only property taxes. I know the state assembly is trying to look at that, trying to do some type of some adjustments and stuff like that. They did do an adjustment. They did increase the homestead exemption from 60 to 100,000, but still
Nice.
that's not enough.
Yeah.
And lastly, I believe there's another property tax relief that's coming around. They're talking about it, so keep an eye on it. It's going to come, and it's really important. So
That would be super helpful.
yes, sir.
So, I mean, when you're advising, a seller or a buyer on a commercial investment, whether it's in industrial, retail, multifamily, are sellers having to get more realistic on sales price? Because when a buyer does their diligence, they run it through, they calculate debt service coverage ratio based on taxes and insurance and things like that. Are you seeing some sticker shock that maybe we got to, take a haircut on what we think our sales price should be? Or sellers still standing firm on, kind of the sales prices? Is the bid ask spread still a long way away?
Um, it's that's another great question, because the new cap rate is not, there's certain like sectors, office, retail, RV, there's certain cap rates that we look for that to see if that investment's good to cover the debt service coverage ratio, and the taxes and stuff like that. That's extremely important. One thing I will say to my sellers is saying, hey, be realistic. Are you ready to continue paying this, or are you willing to stop the bleeding? One, or two, and if we're a buyer, I create two scenarios. So I create I'm a Excel. I love Excel. I mean, I wish our lives were all done by Excel. But I can really forecast, like, hey, if we acquire this position, if we acquire this property, we Excel it out, and we look at the debt service coverage ratio. What does that look like? And really, I tell my clients, unfortunately, it's a crappy part of my part of the business. I'm like, stay away. I'm
Yeah.
losing transactions from it, but I'm like, hey, it's not a good deal. Let's walk away from this, because it's not a good deal, because it's not cash flowing. That's what I would say.
Yep. I think that's an advisory piece, Jose, that I feel like a lot of, brokers don't get involved in, because, you made the comment before we were on the air that real estate can be emotional. But when you're making an investment decision, you can't really afford to be emotional about it. So I feel like you're doing right by your clients by, being that guiding light, saying this investment doesn't make any sense. And some people are okay with that, but it's interesting, just kind of watching these investment decisions play out, because there's just so many things that don't make sense right now. And there's got to be a change. I mean, there's got to be the interest. Something's got to give, right? Insurance has got to go down. Taxes got to go down. The interest rate's got to go down. Something's got to happen for investment decisions to make sense anymore. So we'll keep on, I guess, kicking the can down the road till we figure out what makes sense. But Jose, look, thanks for joining me on the show. This is our first episode together, and look forward to having you back as a kind of a regular contributor, to our panelists here. And so we're going to take a quick commercial break, everybody, and we will be right back in just a couple minutes. All right. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. I hope you found some value in the show. We had some new guests on, and we're going to do this again next week, same time, same place. I do want to tell you, I am optimistic about where the real estate and market is going. I mean, as an investor, I like buying real estate. I like renovating properties. We buy things that need some work. We put some money into them. And my portfolio of a couple hundred houses has largely been long-term rentals, but we've pivoted our strategy a bit to the short-term rental market. I still think, and what I mean by short-term rentals is Airbnbs and things like that. So I think the short-term rental market, in my opinion, is going to be a nice bridge for us until the interest rate can get back down to a place and sellers can get more realistic about what a sales price of a house should be, so we as investors can make money. And so if you guys want to learn more about short-term rentals, we're all over that right now. We're building out more short-term rentals. I think there's lots of value in pivoting investment portfolios, not all the way into short-term rentals. If you own a huge portfolio of long-term rentals, rental properties, you're not going to want to put 200 on the market next year. But where it makes sense, I think it's a great strategy. So look, as always, reach out to us if we can help you in your investing decisions. We have a program called the Victory Strategy, thevictorystrategy.com, where we help investors plan out, map out, their strategy. A lot of people are realizing that they don't want all their money in the stock market, put all their eggs in one basket. They want to buy investment properties to supplement retirement, to supplement their W-2. We can help you with that at the Victory Strategy. And we can tell you what we're doing. We've changed our strategy from long-term to short-term rentals, and we've got a lot on that we'd like to tell you about. Run everything through a calculator right now. If you're going to make an investment decision, don't just buy things and get emotional because that house looks great. You really got to put the numbers and figure out what the details are. And so that's the one thing that I would say. As interest rates are coming down, things are starting to look a little bit more attractive. There's a lot of inventory on the market. You can make lowball offers. Run everything through a calculator before you make that investment decision. So shoot me a note on Instagram. I'm Andrew.Glisson. Tell me what you guys want to hear from on the show. If you've got guests that you would like to suggest for us, we love interviewing new people. So as always, reach out, keep in touch, and we will see you guys next week. Thanks so much.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.